I walked into the graduation party with my kids in tow. My sister rolled her eyes and snapped. "This was supposed to be perfect. Why are you here?" My daughter tugged my hand and whispered, "Don't they want us?" I didn't answer. I just said, "We're leaving." By nightfall, my sister finally realized exactly what she'd ruined. The drive to my parents' house should have been a simple journey, 47 minutes precisely. I knew this because my daughter, Chloe, a vibrant 7-year-old, meticulously counted every single one of them aloud from the back seat. Her voice, a melodic cascade of numbers, held that particular excitement only a child can muster when promised the sweet allure of cake and the chaotic joy of cousins, all set against a backdrop of bobbing balloons. We'd prepared for this party as if it were a royal decree. The night before, I'd navigated the bustling labyrinth of the mall with both kids, a quest for new outfits. Chloe's cherished dress had been outgrown, and Ethan, my barely 5-year-old, had, with impressive dedication, managed to spill grape juice on his only nice shirt weeks ago. We'd wandered through 3 different stores, each aisle a miniature adventure, before finally unearthing exactly what they envisioned: Chloe's bright yellow daisy dress, a sunbeam in fabric, and a little blue button-down for Ethan that transformed him into a miniature, serious businessman. "Mia is going to love seeing you both," I told them, our voices muffled by the lively hum of the food court as we devoured soft pretzels. "She always talks about how much she misses her favorite cousins." That part, at least historically, was true. Mia, my niece, had been a constant, gentle presence in our lives. She'd babysat for me dozens of times over the years, appearing at my door with an arsenal of craft supplies and an endless well of patience. She had taught Chloe to braid vibrant friendship bracelets, a quiet ritual of thread and connection, and had let Ethan help her bake cookies that always, without fail, came out slightly burned but were devoured with an enthusiasm that defied culinary critique. The unspoken truth was, the caustic problems between my sister, Danielle, and me had never, not once, touched Mia. I'd made damn sure of that. Whatever poison Danielle spat in my direction, a venom I knew well, I swallowed it down, forcing a brittle smile. The alternative, watching my children lose the warmth and connection of their cousin, seemed too high a price for my own battered pride. 43 minutes! Chloe announced, her voice piercing the quiet hum of the car. 44 minutes! My son, Ethan, somewhere around minute 26, had succumbed to sleep, his head lolling against his car seat. One small hand was still clutching the graduation card we picked out together at the store. He'd insisted on the one adorned with glitter because, as he'd explained with devastating sincerity, "Cousin Mia likes sparkly things." He wasn't wrong. Mia, Danielle's 18-year-old daughter, had always gravitated toward anything that caught the light, a moth drawn to a flame. When she was small, I used to bring her little crystals from the craft store. She'd hold them up to the window for hours, a tiny scientist mesmerized as rainbows scattered across the walls of her bedroom. That felt like a lifetime ago. The distance between Danielle and me had grown gradually, insidiously, like a crack in a foundation. It starts as a hairline fracture, almost imperceptible, then slowly, relentlessly, threatens to split the entire structure apart. We'd been close once, or at least I believed we were. We shared a bedroom until she turned 13, whispered secrets under the cover of darkness, covered for each other when we snuck cookies before dinner or stayed up past bedtime, reading with flashlights under the covers. The true shift happened when I got into Columbia. Danielle had navigated her own college application process 3 years earlier, ultimately landing at a decent state school after being rejected from her top choices. She'd made peace with it, or so everyone thought. But when my acceptance letter arrived, an Ivy League institution proudly emblazoned on the parchment, something fundamental changed in the way she looked at me. Suddenly, her state school acceptance wasn't just a disappointment from her own past. It became evidence of an injustice. Proof that our parents had invested more in me, prepared me better, wanted more for me than they had ever wanted for her. None of it was true. We'd had the same tutors, the same opportunities, the same encouragement, but truth had nothing to do with how Danielle processed the world. Every phone call home during my college years, every holiday visit, she found ways to remind everyone that I was the favorite, the golden child, the one who got everything handed to her. By the time I graduated, she'd constructed an entire narrative in which I had somehow stolen her future, as if my success was built on the foundation of her failures. 47 minutes! Chloe shrieked, yanking me back to the present moment as I pulled onto Maple Street. We're here, Ethan! Wake up! We're here! I could see my parents' house from 3 doors down. A jubilant cluster of balloons in purple and gold, Mia's school colors, bobbed around the mailbox. Cars lined both sides of the street, stretching almost to the corner. I had to park nearly a block away, which, in hindsight, should have been my first warning. My mother had mentioned it would be a small gathering. Family only, she'd said. Nothing too elaborate. The yard, however, was packed with at least 60 people. I unbuckled Ethan, still groggy, and lifted him onto my hip, his small body a warm, heavy weight against me. Chloe bounced ahead, a yellow blur of excitement, up the sidewalk. She was wearing the dress she'd picked out herself, bright yellow with delicate daisies along the hem, her hair a masterpiece of 2 perfect braids that had taken me a painstaking 45 minutes to achieve that morning. She'd wanted to look pretty for the party. She wanted her cousin to be proud of her. The front door stood propped open, a welcoming maw from which music drifted, mingling with the savory smell of my mother's famous pulled pork and something sweeter underneath, probably the cake. A banner, vibrant and celebratory, stretched across the porch railing. Congratulations, Mia! With hand-painted stars dotting the letters. Chloe stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Her whole body had gone still, that peculiar stillness children adopt when they sense something profoundly wrong before their minds can quite grasp it. Mommy, she said quietly, her voice a small, wavering question. Where are we? I didn't understand the query. Grandma and Grandpa's house, sweetie, for Mia's graduation party. She pointed, a small finger tracing an arc. At the banner. At the photos displayed on easels near the door, a visual timeline of Mia's life visible through the window. But we're not in any of the pictures. I looked. A sudden, cold dread settled in my stomach. The display nearest the door featured a meticulous timeline of Mia's life, baby photos, her first day of kindergarten, the awkwardness of middle school, the glitter of prom. And in every single photo that included extended family, there was a strange, surgical absence. I recognized the backgrounds: Christmas at my parents' house, summer barbecues, Easter brunches. But Chloe and Ethan had been cropped out, cut away, erased. In one photo, a memory of a joyous, sun-drenched day, you could still see the bright yellow tip of Chloe's rain boot at the very edge of the frame, the only evidence she'd ever been there at all. I stood frozen on that porch, my brain struggling to process what my eyes were telling me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an oversight, or a space issue, or any of the reasonable explanations I was desperately trying to construct. Someone, Danielle obviously, had gone through years of family photographs and methodically removed my children from every single one. The level of effort required was staggering. These weren't digital photos casually cropped on a phone. Several of them were clearly reprinted, enlarged, professionally mounted. She'd spent time on this, money on this. She'd looked at pictures of family gatherings and decided, deliberately and with forethought, that my children's faces were a problem to be solved. Chloe was still staring at the display, her small face cycling through emotions too complex for her years. I watched her notice details I'd missed. A photo from her 5th birthday party, a celebration I remembered vividly, had somehow been reframed to exclude her entirely, showing only the decorated table and the edge of my mother's arm. My stomach dropped like a stone. Let's go inside, I said, and my voice, to my own surprise, came out steadier than I felt. The living room was a vibrant tapestry of noise and faces, relatives I recognized, their laughter a familiar balm, and strangers I didn't, their conversations a gentle hum. My Aunt Patricia spotted me first, and something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe, or discomfort, before she quickly plastered on a bright smile and waved. My mother's neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, was there, expertly balancing a plate of appetizers while chatting animatedly with my cousin Derek's wife. My mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, the familiar scent of her cooking clinging to her. She saw me and stopped mid-stride. "Brooke," she said, her voice laced with an odd hesitation. "I didn't think you were coming." "You invited me," I reminded her, a sharp edge to my tone I hadn't intended. "Well, yes, but—" She glanced over her shoulder toward the backyard, where I could see more guests gathered around tables decorated with elaborate floral arrangements. "Danielle said you had other plans?" Chloe tugged at my hand, her small voice cutting through the rising tension. "Grandma, where are the pictures of me and Ethan? We're not on the board." My mother's face did something complicated then, guilt and irritation wrestling for dominance, before she knelt down to Chloe's level. "Those are old pictures, sweetheart. From before you were born." It was such an obvious lie that even Chloe, at 7, didn't believe it. I watched her face cycle through confusion, then hurt, then something that looked like the very beginning of understanding. "The Easter one was last year," Chloe said quietly. "I was wearing my bunny ears." My mother straightened up, her expression tightening. "Why don't you go find the other kids in the backyard? There's a bounce house." Chloe looked at me, her eyes seeking permission, and I nodded. She took Ethan's hand, her small, determined figure leading him through the crowd, her yellow dress a fading beacon as it disappeared through the sliding glass door. "Mom," I said, my voice low. "Not here," she hissed, grabbing my elbow, her fingers pressing harder than necessary. "Come to the kitchen." The kitchen was marginally quieter, though I could still feel the party's pulse vibrating through the walls. Through the window over the sink, I could see the backyard, the bounce house my mother had mentioned, tables laden with food, children running in wild, joyful circles while adults clustered in conversations. Chloe and Ethan were visible near the dessert table, standing slightly apart from the other kids, and something about their body language made my chest ache. My mother closed the door, the click echoing in the sudden quiet, and turned to face me, her expression settling into something resigned, weary. "Danielle didn't want you here," she said. "She asked me not to invite you. But you did invite me. You called me yourself 3 weeks ago. Because you're my daughter, Brooke, and those are my grandchildren." She sighed, pressing her fingers to her temples as if to ward off a headache. I thought if you just showed up, Danielle would have to behave herself. That she'd see you with the kids and remember that family is family." The naivety of this plan was almost touching. My mother had spent decades believing that if she just wished hard enough, her daughters would magically reconcile. She never understood that Danielle's animosity wasn't a phase or a misunderstanding. It was structural, load-bearing, essential to how my sister had built her entire identity. "And the photos?" I prompted, my voice cold. My mother looked away, her gaze flitting around the kitchen as if searching for an escape. "That was Danielle's idea. She put together all the displays. I didn't see them until yesterday. And by then, it was easier to just let it go." She didn't deny it. The kitchen door swung open, and my sister walked in. Danielle had always been the beautiful one. That's what everyone said when we were growing up. Danielle with her perfect cheekbones, her effortless grace, her ability to walk into any room and own it completely. I was the smart one, the reliable one, the one who got good grades and stayed out of trouble and never, ever made waves. She was 41 now and still stunning. Her hair was blown out to perfection, shimmering under the kitchen lights. Her dress probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and her makeup looked professionally done, impeccable. She was carrying a crystal champagne flute in one hand, and when she saw me, she stopped so abruptly that liquid splashed over the rim, splattering onto the tile floor. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice a low, dangerous growl. "Hello to you too, Danielle," I replied, my voice calm, belying the tension coiling in my gut. Her eyes swept over me, a rapid, dismissive scan of my Target sundress, my sensible flats, my hair that I'd actually thought looked nice this morning, before walking into a house full of people who'd rather pretend I didn't exist. "This was going to be perfect," she continued, her voice low, controlled, but I could hear the fury, a simmering volcano, just beneath the surface. Why did you come? This is Mia's day, Brooke. My daughter's day, and you just had to show up and make it about yourself? I was invited. I told Mom to uninvite you. My mother made a small, helpless sound. Danielle, please. No. Danielle set her champagne glass down on the counter with a thud hard enough to crack the base. I have spent 6 months planning this party. 6 months! And I told you specifically that I didn't want her here. I didn't want her kids here. I didn't want to spend my daughter's graduation looking at the woman who ruined my life. The accusation landed like a slap, stinging and familiar. How did I ruin your life, Danielle? Please enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, I've done nothing but try to make peace with you for the past 3 years. She laughed, a sharp, bitter, ugly sound. Make peace? That's rich. You want to know how you ruined my life? You exist, Brooke. You exist and you've always existed. And no matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, Mom and Dad always find some way to make it about you. This was old territory. We'd been fighting about our parents' attention since we were children, though the specifics had shifted over the years. When we were young, Danielle accused me of being the favorite because I got better grades. When we were teenagers, she accused me of being the favorite because our parents trusted me more. When we were adults, she accused me of being the favorite because honestly, I'd stopped trying to follow the logic years ago. This isn't about Mom and Dad, I said, trying to steer the conversation away from the well-worn ruts of the past. Of course it is. It's always about them. When you got divorced, who did they rush to help? You. When you lost your job, who did they bail out? You. When you needed someone to watch your kids while you got back on your feet, who dropped everything? Mom and Dad for you. Always for you. My divorce had happened 4 years ago, a brutal, public implosion after I discovered my husband had been having an affair with his secretary for nearly the entirety of our marriage. I'd lost my job 6 months later when the company I worked for went bankrupt. My parents had helped me, yes, because I had 2 small children and nowhere else to turn. I paid them back. I said, my voice tight. Every penny. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Danielle? She stepped closer, invading my space close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive, floral, cloying. The point is that this is supposed to be about Mia, my daughter, my family. And you just can't stand to let me have one thing, can you? You had to show up with your sad little kids and your sad little life and remind everyone that poor Brooke needs attention, too. The sliding glass door opened, and Chloe appeared, a small, tentative figure in the doorway. Her braids were starting to come loose, and there was something wet on her cheek. Tears, I realized with a sudden jolt of horror. She was crying. Mommy. Her voice was small, wavering. Don't they want us here? Danielle made a sound of exasperation. Oh, for God's sake, don't. The word came out of me, sharp and hard, making Danielle take a step back. Don't you dare speak to my daughter. I crossed to Chloe and knelt down, pulling her into my arms, inhaling the sweet, comforting scent of her hair. Over her shoulder, I could see Ethan standing in the doorway, clutching his glitter card, his face crumpled with confusion. One of the big kids said we weren't supposed to be here. Chloe whispered against my neck, her small hands clutching my shirt. He said Aunt Danielle told everyone not to talk to us. Something inside me shifted. Calcified. Turned to stone. I stood up, Chloe still in my arms, and looked at my sister. We're leaving, I said, my voice a flat, unwavering line. Brooke, wait. Danielle muttered. My mother reached for me, a desperate plea in her eyes, but I sidestepped her. Please just stay. We can work this out. No. I collected Ethan, who silently moved to my side, grabbed my purse from where I'd left it on the kitchen counter, and walked out. Through the living room, conversations faltered as I passed, hushed whispers following in our wake. Aunt Patricia said my name, a question in her voice, but I didn't stop. The front porch, the sidewalk, the car. I buckled my children into their seats with steady hands that didn't start shaking until I pulled away from the curb, until my parents' house had disappeared from the rearview mirror, until Chloe stopped crying and Ethan stopped asking why we had to go so soon. By the time I got home, the trembling had spread to my whole body, a deep, pervasive tremor. My phone started ringing before I'd even gotten the kids inside. My mother 4 times. My father twice. A text from Aunt Patricia. "Honey, what happened?" I turned the phone off. The kids were subdued through dinner, chicken nuggets, apple slices, the comfort food of defeated evenings. I let them watch an extra hour of television before bed because I didn't have the energy to fight about anything else. It was almost 9 when the doorbell rang. Mia stood on my porch, still in her graduation dress, mascara tracked down her cheeks. "Aunt Brooke." Her voice cracked on my name. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. I pulled her inside, made her tea, handed her tissues. The story came out in fragments, punctuated by gasps and sniffles. She'd seen me leave, asked her mother what happened, and the answer she received had been so ugly, so distorted, that she had left her own party to find out the truth. "Mom said you crashed the party to make a scene. That you screamed at Grandma and made Chloe cry on purpose for sympathy." Mia's hands shook around her mug. "But that's not what happened, is it?" "No," I said, my voice gentle. "I saw the photos. The displays. Mom had all these pictures made up and you and Chloe and Ethan were cut out of all of them. Like you didn't exist, like you were never part of our family." Mia looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Why does she hate you so much?" The question I'd been asking myself for years. "I don't think she hates me," I said slowly, carefully choosing my words. "I think she hates the idea of me. The comparison. Your mother has spent her whole life measuring herself against me. And anything I have, anything at all, feels like something stolen from her. That's insane. Maybe, but it's also why she can't let go. Why every success I have, every moment of happiness, feels like a personal attack. She can't be happy for me because she can't separate my joy from her own perceived failures." I paused, gathering my thoughts. Outside, I could hear the muffled sounds of the party continuing without us, music, laughter, the normal sounds of celebration. Somewhere in that crowd, my parents were probably fielding questions about where I'd gone, spinning some story that would make Danielle look less monstrous. "When I got divorced," I continued, a new resolve hardening my voice, "Danielle sent me a card. You know what it said? I always knew he was too good for you. Not sympathy, not support, just this satisfied little jab, like my marriage falling apart was confirmation of something she'd always believed." Mia's eyes widened, a dawning realization in their depths. "She never told me any of that." "Of course, she didn't. The version of me that exists in your mother's head isn't real, Mia. It's a character she invented to justify her own feelings. In that story, I'm the villain. Selfish, attention-seeking, always trying to steal what's rightfully hers. Every fact gets twisted to fit that narrative." Mia sat down her tea, her gaze fixed on mine. "What are you going to do?" I'd been thinking about that since the drive home. Thinking about all the years I'd bitten my tongue, made peace, smoothed things over. All the holidays I'd shown up with a smile and pretended not to notice when Danielle forgot to get gifts for my kids. All the family dinners where I'd sat quietly while she made snide comments about my house, my job, my life. "Your mother made a choice today," I said, my voice firm. "She chose to hurt my children deliberately, publicly. And that's something I can't forgive." "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and turned it back on. 23 missed calls, 46 text messages. I ignored them all and opened my email. 3 years ago, I co-signed a loan for your mother. She needed money to start her event planning business. And she didn't have enough credit history to qualify on her own. Your grandfather asked me to help, and I did. Mia's face went pale. "I didn't know that. Your mother made sure nobody did. She told everyone the money came from her savings. She's been paying me back slowly, but there's still $40,000 outstanding." I pulled up an email I'd drafted months ago and never sent. The one requesting full repayment within 30 days, per the terms of our agreement. The one that would trigger legal action if Danielle didn't comply. The business is successful now, I continued. She has the money, but she's been paying me the minimum, stretching it out because it's easier to pretend the debt doesn't exist than to admit she ever needed my help. And Brooke, no! I've never told anyone about this loan. Not your grandparents, not Aunt Patricia, not a single person in our family. I let your mother keep her pride because I thought it was the right thing to do. I hit send. What did you just do? Sent a formal demand for repayment, and copied my attorney. Mia stared at me, wide-eyed. She's going to lose it. My phone buzzed. My mother. I answered this time. Brooke, thank God. Danielle is hysterical. She says you sent her some kind of legal threat. What is going on? Ask her about the loan. What loan? The $40,000 I gave her 3 years ago to start her business. The money she told everyone came from her savings. Ask her about that. Silence. That's not. Danielle said she saved that money? She lied. I have documentation, bank transfers, signed agreements, everything. More silence. Then faintly, I heard my father's voice in the background. Janet, what's happening? I have to go. My mother said, and hung up. The next few hours were chaos. My phone rang constantly, Danielle screaming incoherently, my father demanding explanations, various relatives calling for gossip disguised as concern. I answered none of them. Mia stayed until midnight curled up on my couch, watching the implosion of her family from a safe distance. I can't go home, she said quietly. You can stay here tonight. No, I mean. She looked at me with something raw in her expression. I can't go back to that house. I can't pretend anymore. Everything she's ever told me about you, about why we don't see you at holidays, about why Chloe and Ethan are difficult, it was all lies, wasn't it? Probably. I'm supposed to start college in the fall. Mom wanted me to live at home, commute, but now. She shook her head. I applied to schools out of state. I got into Northwestern, full scholarship, but Mom said I couldn't go. She said the family needed me here. What do you want? The question seemed to startle her. I want to go. I want to get away from her and figure out who I am without her voice in my head all the time. Then go. She'll never forgive me. Mia. I reached out, taking her hand, my touch grounding. Your mother's forgiveness is conditional on your obedience. It always will be. The question you need to ask yourself is whether that's a price you're willing to pay for the rest of your life. She stayed that night, and the next night, and the night after that. Her mother called my house 17 times before finally showing up in person, demanding her daughter back. I stood in my doorway and watched Danielle unravel on my front lawn. You turned her against me. My own daughter. You couldn't stand that she loves me more, so you poisoned her. Mia is 18. She can make her own choices. She's my child. She's an adult, and she's chosen to stay here while she figures out what she wants to do next. Danielle's face contorted. I'll sue you for alienation of affection. For kidnapping. For what exactly? I asked, a cool amusement in my voice. Your adult daughter walking out of your house and staying with her aunt? Good luck with that. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had come out onto her porch, watering can in hand, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. I'd have to explain this to her later. Or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I was done explaining Danielle to people. You've always been jealous of me. Danielle spat, her voice thick with venom. Always. Because I'm prettier. Because people actually like me. Because I have a husband and a beautiful home and a successful business. And you have what? A rental house and 2 kids whose father couldn't wait to leave? The cruelty was breathtaking, even by her standards. She knew exactly where to aim, the divorce that had shattered me, the financial struggles that had followed, the loneliness that crept in during those first years of single motherhood when I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. But here's what Danielle never understood. I'd already survived the worst things she could throw at me. I'd rebuilt my life from wreckage. I'd become someone who didn't need her approval, didn't crave her validation, didn't measure my worth against her accomplishments. Her words landed on armor she didn't know I'd built. She advanced toward me, and for a moment I thought she might actually try to hit me. But something in my expression stopped her, some calm, implacable certainty that I'd stopped being afraid of her a long time ago. You destroyed my party. You destroyed my family. And now you're destroying my relationship with my daughter. Her voice broke, a raw, ragged sound. Why do you hate me so much? The irony was almost too much. I don't hate you, Danielle. I never have. But you've spent our entire lives treating me as competition, and I'm done participating. I'm done pretending your cruelty is something I need to manage. I'm done protecting you from consequences. What consequences? Call your attorney. You'll find out. The next morning, my parents showed up at my door. They looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. We didn't know about the loan. My father said quietly, his eyes weary. She never told us. I know. Why didn't you tell us? Because I'd wanted to protect her. Because I'd hoped she would grow out of her bitterness. Because despite everything, she was my sister. But I didn't say any of that. It doesn't matter now. My mother was crying soft, quiet tears that she kept wiping away with the back of her hand. This family is falling apart. The family was already broken, Mom. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Over the following weeks, the truth emerged in pieces. Relatives who believed Danielle's version of events for years started calling me, asking questions, piecing together a different narrative than the one they'd been fed. Aunt Patricia discovered that Danielle had told everyone I'd refused to attend her daughter's baptism, when in reality, I'd never even been invited. My cousin Derek learned that the massive fight Danielle claimed we'd had at his wedding was entirely fabricated. I hadn't even known there was supposed to be a conflict until years later. The lies went back decades. Small ones, large ones, carefully constructed to paint me as difficult, cold, jealous of Danielle's success. She'd been building a case against me our entire lives, and nobody had ever thought to question her. My father called me one evening, his voice tired in a way I'd never heard before. Did you really tell Danielle she'd never amount to anything at Grandma's funeral? What? Dad, Grandma's funeral was 15 years ago. I barely spoke to anyone. I was too busy crying. She told your mother that you cornered her in the bathroom and said. He broke off. It doesn't matter what she said. You said none of it was true, was it? No. A long pause. How much of what she's told us over the years has been lies? I don't know, Dad. I can only tell you what actually happened from my perspective. You'll have to figure out the rest for yourselves. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, I'm sorry, Brooke. We should have asked you. We should have questioned things instead of just assuming. We believed your daughter. I understand that. We believed the wrong daughter. There was nothing I could say to that. Years of missed birthdays, awkward holidays, assumptions I'd never known existed. All of it built on a foundation of lies I hadn't realized were being told. The scope of Danielle's deception was almost impressive in its thoroughness. What happens now? My father asked. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Mia moved into my guest room and started the paperwork for Northwestern. Her relationship with her mother was strained, maybe permanently, but something had shifted in her. A weight lifted, a freedom claimed. Chloe started second grade. Ethan started kindergarten. Life continued, smaller and quieter than before, but steadier. My sister and I don't speak anymore. We pass information through relatives when absolutely necessary. Someone's in the hospital. Someone's died. The basic logistics of existing in the same family tree. But the pretense of relationship is over. I saw her once, about 3 months after the graduation party, at our cousin's baby shower. We arrived at the same time, our cars pulling into adjacent parking spots like some cruel cosmic joke. For a long moment, we just sat there, either of us willing to be the first to move. Finally, I got out. She did too. We looked at each other across the hoods of our cars. Two sisters, 41 and 38, standing in a church parking lot with decades of history and hurt between us. "Brooke," she said. "Danielle." Neither of us said anything else. We walked into the building separately, sat on opposite sides of the room, and left without speaking again. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been screamed, whispered, or implied over 38 years of shared existence. Some people think I should have tried harder, forgiven more, been the bigger person. But I spent 38 years being the bigger person, and all it got me was a sister who systematically erased my children from photographs, who taught her daughter to believe I was a villain, who stood in my mother's kitchen and called my presence a personal attack. There's a particular kind of freedom in recognizing that some relationships cannot be saved. That some damage is too deep, too deliberate, too long in the making. Walking away isn't failure. It's the recognition that your energy and love are finite resources, and some people will drain them dry without ever giving anything back. Chloe asked about Aunt Danielle one more time, about 6 months after everything fell apart. We were making dinner together. Her job was stirring the sauce while I chopped vegetables, and she looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. "Is Aunt Danielle still mad at us?" "I think Aunt Danielle is mad at a lot of things, sweetheart. Most of them don't have anything to do with you. But she cut us out of the pictures. That seems like she's mad at us specifically." 7 years old and already cutting to the heart of things. I set down my knife and knelt beside her, meeting her at eye level. Sometimes grown-ups do things that don't make sense. And sometimes those things hurt other people, even when that's not the reason they're doing them. Aunt Danielle has feelings about me, about Mommy, that made her do something hurtful to you and Ethan. That's not okay, and I'm not going to pretend it is. But I also want you to know that it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Did you do something wrong? No, baby. Sometimes people decide to be angry, and there's nothing you can do to change that. What matters is how we treat each other, and you treat people with kindness. That's what I want you to remember. She nodded slowly, processing. Okay. Can I have extra cheese on my pasta? And just like that, we moved on. Children are remarkably good at that. Acknowledging hurt, setting it aside, and returning to the immediate business of living. It's a skill I've been trying to relearn. Danielle paid off the loan in full 2 weeks later, presumably to avoid the legal action my attorney had outlined. She didn't contact me directly, sent the money through her lawyer, and included no note, no acknowledgement, no apology. I hadn't expected one. The silence from Danielle was somehow louder than her screaming had been. After years of her voice in my head, criticizing, comparing, cutting, the absence of it felt strange. I kept bracing for the next attack, the next manipulation, the next family gathering where I'd have to armor myself against her barbs. Instead, there was just quiet. My friend Julie from work noticed the change in me before I did. "You look different," she said one morning, studying me over the rim of her coffee cup. "Lighter somehow, like you put down something heavy." I stopped carrying my sister's opinion of me. Was it that heavy? I thought about all the times I'd second-guessed myself. Wondered if maybe Danielle was right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'd somehow caused her hatred through some failing I couldn't identify. The constant low-grade anxiety of family gatherings. The way I'd shrink myself to take up less space, less attention, less of whatever resource Danielle believed I was stealing. It was heavier than I realized. The last time I spoke to my mother, she asked if there was any way to fix things. Any path back to the family we used to be. "There is no family we used to be," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "There was the family Danielle described, and there was the truth. You can't go back to a place that never existed. But we're blood. Doesn't that mean something?" Blood meant everything to my mother. It was the reason she tolerated Danielle's behavior for so long, the reason she'd looked the other way while her daughter's relationship corroded from the inside out. "Blood means we're connected," I said. "It doesn't mean we're obligated to accept abuse." She didn't have an answer for that. What I didn't tell her, what I couldn't explain in a way she'd understand, was that accepting abuse wasn't love. It was just acceptance of abuse. The two had gotten tangled in our family, knotted together so tightly that everyone believed suffering in silence was the same as caring deeply. My mother's generation had been taught that keeping the peace was a woman's highest calling. Smooth things over. Don't make waves. Family comes first, even when family is the thing hurting you. She'd passed those lessons to Danielle and me, but we'd learned different versions. Danielle learned she could do anything and someone would clean up the mess. I learned I was supposed to be the one cleaning. Breaking that pattern felt like betraying everything I'd been raised to believe. And maybe it was. But betraying a broken system isn't the same as betraying the people trapped inside it. Summer turned to fall. Mia left for Northwestern, texting me photos of her dorm room, her new friends, her first college party. She looked lighter in every picture, unburdened in a way I'd never seen her. Chloe started second grade. Ethan started kindergarten. Life continued, smaller and quieter than before, but steadier. By nightfall, on the day of that graduation party, my sister understood exactly what she destroyed: the illusion of family unity, the protection I'd silently offered for years, the relationship with her daughter she tried so hard to control. She didn't understand it because I taught her a lesson or exacted some dramatic revenge. She understood it because I simply stopped participating in the fiction. And sometimes, that's all it takes.